the top of the world. Fabulous 1340 KAB.
Hi, mateys.
Like it's spooky.
To the ships at sea who can hear my voice, look across the water into the darkness. Look for the fog.
Hey everybody, welcome to this episode of Red Fog Radio. I'm Brian.
And I'm Rod.
And we have a guest every episode, so at what point do they become unspecial?
They're always special, Brian.
Okay.
Always.
Not today. I'm going to ruin your streak today. Yeah.
That's all right. Well, we have a filmmaker, a writer, an actor, everything all in one. Wes Worthing. Hey, welcome.
Well, thank you. It's great to be here, guys. Great to meet both of you and hang out for a while and talk shop.
Yeah, I mean, we both kind of met you, I believe, at Snake Alley Film Festival. My first one was this past year. I did catch a little bit of your short that you had out there, which we'll talk more about here soon.
When I tell stories about who I've met over the years, I think that there's a greater percentage of them that I've met at the Snake Alley Festival film in Burlington than perhaps anywhere else. I've been there 7 times now, sometimes with both a film and a script, but typically, I think most times has been with a script, but no film. And so, yeah, scripts are a little easier to get accomplished than film. So,
So I guess the first thing we're going to talk about is your short that you released, Wilt. How many years ago was that? Was it a couple years ago?
No, actually, we shot that in 2019. However, we got it on the festival circuit in 2020, but that was a really challenging year. Most of the festivals were online rather than in person. So we did some re-editing and sent it out again in 2021, 2022, and just to get more eyes to see our film because we were really proud of it. But yeah, we wrapped up its festival run a few years ago.
So a little bit more context for Wilt. It's basically a woman whose relationship is going nowhere, like she's being
Ghosted.
Yep. Hey, I should know that term. It's happened to me.
I was going to say, he knows all about it.
But I feel like I need to get some royalties on this because this has like been my life at some point or another.
A lot of us, yeah.
Yeah. And I find it kind of very much like my life because you go from one thing, like you got the flower in the vase, and then that relationship, it kind of progresses and, slowly you can see it dying. And then eventually you either become miserable or you change out the flowers.
Right.
That's kind of how life is sometimes.
I'm so happy that you noticed the symbolism there. The whole thing, I mean, there's symbolism throughout. Even toward the end of the film, we shot with Wendy in Chicago. When she's walking through that bright tunnel, that's symbolic of, there's light at the end of the tunnel and other things symbolic along the way. The book that the main actress is reading when she's starting to do the turnaround, she's starting to do better things for herself. She's reading, she's eating. The book she's reading is actually the one it was just adapted into a movie. The book is Grief is the Thing with Feathers. And now it's the new Benedict Cumberbatch film. Although I don't think they used the full title. I think that's just called The Thing with Feathers or something like that. Yeah, so that's the book she's reading. You can't see the title on screen. But to me, that was kind of my own little personal Easter egg because she's going through basically a few stages of grief because she's being ghosted.
And is this the one where you've kind of told me that you had many hats involved with this one?
Well, thankfully, I remove a hat almost on every project. So yes, I definitely had several on that production. Had I removed another hat or two or spread the hats out evenly, then I personally think that I could have had a smoother production. We didn't have any big rough patches. We were able to get through the whole production. And I don't know. I'm really tough on myself as a director, as any role that I play in front of or behind the camera. I am my own worst critic. And I always kind of examine the process after it's over. And yeah, I definitely could have done a better job. In fact, when I first started filmmaking, I was also editing my films. And I realized very quickly I was not satisfied with myself as a director because I wouldn't be able to watch myself direct, but I could hear myself direct and talk even between takes if the microphone's still going or the camera. And there was one time where the actress was asking me a question and I just heard silence, like So I'm listening with my headphones on. Am I going to answer this actress? I mean, I'm not ignoring her to be rude. I was just paying attention to the lighting and the camera and the lens and and so many things. I didn't even hear her question. And so for Wilt, we actually had a production assistant. Actually, it was Wendy Went, who's from Marion, a fantastic actress and dear friend. She was Andrea Ayrton's assistant and helped her out a lot. And so that was a great help. So I could actually pay attention to other things and at times also help Andrea.
Because those two are basically the only actresses in the film, right?
Right.
And it's mostly in a one location. There are some like dream sequence like that's kind of outside, but I love that one. I mean, maybe it's because I connect with it a little bit more, but yeah, I really enjoyed that one.
I appreciate that. Yeah. Bruce James Bales and his team, Deft Productions, did the shooting and sound for the interior shots of the apartment. That was in Des Moines. And then Wendy and I got the shots in Chicago with a different camera, so it would have a different look, and along the shoreline of Chicago. We wanted everyone to think this apartment in Des Moines was actually a much larger city.
And that's the other interesting thing that we've been finding is that there are a lot of filmmakers, indie artists in just Iowa. Like you're from the Des Moines area, and I didn't know about all this until I think a year back, actually, at the Ottumwa International Film Festival, which you have a film entered in for this year. We'll get to that one a little bit more. But I met other Des Moines artists that had made a huge film there, a G.I. Joe fan film. It's just incredible what Iowa can do right now.
Right. I've been at this for close to 3 decades now. And in the beginning, it was mostly about screenwriting only when the internet was just being born. Back then, it was just writing a script and hopefully somebody else would want to shoot it. And then digital came around. That made things easier for the rest of us. Yeah, there hasn't been a year that's gone by that I haven't met several people who have no idea all the fantastic film production teams we have in Iowa, as well as all the film festivals. It's like a shock when anyone finds out there's even one film festival in Iowa, let alone the dozen or so that we have.
Yeah, and it seems like every year there's a new one that pops up.
It seems, yeah.
Well, let's just get into it. I mean, the film that you have right now that's running the festival circuit, Outro, where you did kind of co-write this with Mike Pace, who plays the main character, Roger, in it. And yeah, this is the one I caught the tail end of it at Snake Alley. I saw it and I was like, wow, this is pretty good. Who did this? And it's that guy I met earlier. It was kind of funny. I kind of heard a little bit about the process with this one, but do you want to tell me more about what you and Mike Pace did with this?
Yeah, absolutely. Mike has been an icon for decades on the Iowa film scene and media scene, especially in Des Moines. For 20 plus years, he was the Iowa Lottery spokesperson. Twice a week, he would be the person you would see picking the balls, out of the cage for the Iowa Lottery Powerball, and then other amazing things that he's accomplished over the years. And he wrote a book called Dreams and Detours. I read the book. I loved it. It was mostly poetry and a few short stories. And I thought I want to capture something about how terrific this book is someday, but I had other projects to work on at the time. So there just came a time where I said, I think I actually have a window of opportunity here to maybe create something with Mike. And so I reread the book, loved it even more the second time. So I wrote a script. Now, uniquely, this was one of the first times that I wrote a script knowing that what we were going to shoot wasn't going to be what I was writing. And what I mean by that, it was more of a blueprint. There were scenes in it that I just knew were cliche, and we collectively could come up with a better scene to replace it. And that's what we did. Mike and I grabbed lunch one day. I told him about all my favorite poems that he wrote and why. And I wanted his opinion about, I guess, the depth of the poetry and different things he was writing. Then he wanted to be on board. So we wrote the script together. And every time we got together for a beer or coffee or lunch or something, I would go home with homework and start rewriting scenes. So, and then eventually it really became his story. Not verbatim. It was obviously we took some liberty about the character and what the character's life was like compared to Mike's, but it was quite similar.
Did he have experience as a radio DJ also, or did that just...
Yeah, absolutely. We show still photos of Mike in the film Outro, still photos of back in his day. There's a picture in there of him with Lou Rawls, one with Jay Leno. He also did a skit one time with Tim Conway. Yeah, and then he's just a radio personality in Des Moines for several decades, and also a voiceover commercial actor. Did a lot of work through Radio Garage Productions. Yeah, I always wanted to do something with Mike, and and this was the perfect opportunity. And, once we were done with this, we knew it was going to be something. This wasn't a Sundance film. This was something more, I think, that the Midwestern people who recognize Mike and his voice would appreciate. And we've had a really fun, successful run so far in the Midwest.
Rod liked the first one because he kind of hit home with him. This is the one that maybe hits home more with me because, I'm 47. I've only been podcasting for a couple years, but I've done a lot of things. And I think back, what if I'd have started my journey in being a creator when I was 20 instead of having a family and kids? And what would my life look like? Would I have chosen a different career than what I'm doing? Where would I be at? Not that he didn't, but he wanted to be a singer and a songwriter and travel the world. And, he chose a different path. So,
right. And that's one thing that I noticed. A common theme in his book was there was this sense of, I don't really want to say regret, but just questions. Did I make the right decision? And so that became the main theme of that. He chose, because he is a fantastic singer.
So while he's like doing the DJ part in this, though, it started reminding me a little bit of a show out of Des Moines. Well, not out of Des Moines, but KGGO used to, on Sundays at around noon, they had the blues hour with Andre. And I remember working at a gas station and these kids, like I was probably like 26 or something. They're like barely 21. And I just put on the radio and played this and they're like, what is this? And that's what this whole short reminded me of, is that energy where you get to play what you want.
Yeah.
You get to play things that people have never heard of. And that's where we learn about all this music that is almost forgotten in a sense, but it's still there. It's like you could find this.
Right. It seems like there are fewer and fewer radio stations allowing that freedom. And I started in radio too. I have a radio broadcasting degree I got in the 80s, worked in radio for a while. Yeah, we could play the deep cuts on an album that isn't a hit, isn't going to be a hit, but still sounds great. Just like the character Roger that played by Mike says in the film, we could play the B-sides and the album tracks, and he misses that. Now it has really become very corporate, in some ways sterile. I'm still, I think, open-minded. I do attempt to still enjoy today's music, but as far as radio station format goes, it's just not the same beast as it used to be.
And by the time this comes out, the Ottumwa International Film Festival would already happen. But do you have more film festivals this is being entered in that are coming out later?
We have only one more after Ottumwa, and that will be Cedar Rapids in April. And that's a wrap, unless we might see again if we can have it played in Des Moines at whatever might come up in Des Moines as any type of event, because that's Mike's hometown, or, where everyone lives now among, Mike's family and friends. And we might just find some sort of way to finish off in Des Moines. But as far as established film festivals go, then yeah, Cedar Rapids will be our final one in April. And that'll be a full year because we started in April of last year in Dubuque.
Any other projects that you have planned with Mike in the future? Because I kind of heard of another interview you did where you were talking about Mike really maybe wants to get into acting more.
Oh, he absolutely wants to. And we were talking about, hashing around some ideas. I personally would love to see Mike play something devious like a devil or something. I think with his voice and his look, I think he would be perfect for something evil.
Well, that kind of leads us into something. So we're both big horror fans, Brian and I, and we learned through you, or through actually a mutual friend of ours, Tad Good, that you had a short called Devils in the Details that you did that was basically just, it's you in the whole thing with narration. And I know I've spoken to you a little bit about this and that you're not necessarily embarrassed, but was this like one of your first big projects that you took on?
No, I wouldn't say one of my first big ones. It was just something I knew I was going to be flying to Cleveland for a project, a feature film called Operation Seawolf with Dolph Lundgren. That came about because of somebody I met at SNAF many years ago, the director of the film. Again, another connection made at a festival that led to something else really fun and cool. I do have a funny story. Okay, so I'm flying there knowing that I'm just going to be a featured extra. I don't have lines, but I had a little spare time and a little spare change and an opportunity to be in the same scene as Dolph Lundgren. I was going to take that. And so it wasn't until the night before in the hotel where I got the script and read it. Again, no lines. We weren't supposed to have lines. And then when I was reading the script, it said Dolph Lundgren's character walks into a room where there's a line of Nazi minions. Dolph's character is a Nazi, and they were all like boys, like in their 20s. And I'm thinking, wait, why am I here? I'm not in my 20s. I don't know what they're going to do with me. So we show up the next day, and it turns out there is dialogue, but it's a song. It's like we have to march and sing this in German. And so we had very little time. And they said, we're going to play the soundtrack, this anthem, while we're shooting, so you can just mouth it. So
Wow.
it's like, yeah, that's what I thought. But then Dolph was very professional, very kind, super guy. He says to the director, he was pointing out the same thing I noticed, that this is supposed to be a lot of young guys in their 20s, late teens or whatever. So they started pointing at people to walk on the end of the line, basically kicking out all of us old guys to go to the end of the line. But I was really proud because I was the last old guy to go. So I was kind of on the bubble. I didn't have this gray beard I have now. But yeah, it was still a wonderful experience. And so I was still in the scene just at the end of the line. You'd have, if you blinked.
So you could be seen on film then, on that
Well,
film.
if I hit the pause button, yes. I guess I interrupted the question, though. It was about, Devil in the Details. I had some downtime after our scene. I was in Cleveland. I went to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame to check that out. That was really cool. And then I thought, I've always wanted to do this idea of where somebody was trying to debunk something haunted and then it becomes haunted. And then so I just kind of, again, had I been more prepared for it, I think it would have been a much better production, but it was still fun to do. Yeah, it was more on a whim type of thing, shot with my phone. And then I did a little bit more work after I got back to Iowa.
But how many awards did it win?
Well, it did win like 3 or 4, but some of them were actually interesting awards. One was a Cleveland Film Festival, and I think because they recognized some of the city and some of the things I was talking about, it received like an honorable mention award of some kind. I wasn't able to get to the festival itself, but a few of them, I gotta admit, something I wasn't aware of back then, but I'm far more aware of now, is a lot of the gimmicky film festivals or film monthly award things that are out there. There are a lot of new filmmakers that would love to see something that says the New York Film Awards, the Los Angeles Film Awards, the Cannes Film Awards, but they have no association with anything major. And it's a monthly thing. So every month they're making money off people who want to.
Who enter their films in, and yeah.
Yeah, I got a New York Film Award. But I mean, it was still an interesting thing to attempt. And there's one called 13horror.com that recognized it for a few different things. Yeah, I mean, I was really happy with it. Certainly, I was grateful.
Yeah, I mean, I did get to see it, not during when it was released because it was entered at Halloween-a-Palooza. So like I've told you, I enjoyed it. I mean, I haven't made anything like that myself. So although Brian and I are both judges for Halloween-a-Palooza now, we weren't back then. Yeah, we've seen we'll just leave it at that. So
I've judged film festivals for you. I know exactly what you're talking about. Yeah.
Do you feel like you learn more on ones that you make and you don't like over the ones that you make and you're like, okay, I did really great on this. I like this.
I would say maybe about equal, but certainly the ones where I feel like I dropped the ball. If you go online, it's really challenging to find a lot of the films I've made over the years, mostly because I, again, very particular about the quality of them. I mean, there are 2 in particular over the last 20 plus years that I hope I have buried deep enough in the ground. I'm so embarrassed by, even more than Devil in the Details. And yeah, if we ever have a massive earthquake, they might appear. And no fault to the cast and crew that I worked with. It was just my inability to get, I think, enough coverage or the right angles, or just maybe my story just was fractured or something that's like, oh, that just didn't work. But I would say the ones I had success on, well, everything I've done, and I think most directors are this way, most filmmakers, if they had a chance to redo it, they would probably have a laundry list of different things they would do differently on their film. The shorts as well as the features. That's just me, again, being my own worst critic. And
well, that's like, I do a lot of the editing for our main episodes of the show, and I listen, and I would imagine as a director, you're the same way. You see it differently sitting behind the camera and the microphone. I don't usually go back and listen to our episodes because I've already heard it. I don't need to hear it again. I do maybe a year down the road, but
yeah,
I'm like, oh, I could have done that, and I could have done this. And I kind of feel like you are doing the same thing with films. We edit, we record, we social media, we have all these hats, and for you that's the same thing. And I don't think people understand that. They're like, oh, they're just making a podcast or they're just making a short film. It's not like you're getting paid for these things. That's why you have to wear so many hats. And it's hard to find people that'll be like, oh yeah, I'll just give you my time and not get paid. That's almost a dying art of people that want to learn on the job.
Yeah, I think I try to look at it this way, where I try to pat myself on the back or have some pride in it, that the reason I'm so tough on myself is because I do care about the quality of the work and I want it to be good. I've seen multiple times where something could have been far, far better had it not been rushed, had there been a little bit more care put into it. There seems to be so much product of films, narratives out there that are just so rushed to get out the door. Like, the script wasn't ready to be turned into a film yet. So
Yeah.
I've seen that multiple times and just try not to do that myself. So I do take a lot of time to work on my projects.
Well, Brian's going to have some questions that we're going to ask you. But before we get there, let's hear from our podcast network, the PFPN.
You're listening to the Prescribed Films Podcast Network, home to hundreds of hours of free podcast entertainment. The shows on this network all have a common goal: providing you with the best discussions about movies and other forms of entertainment media. The PFPN hopes to fill your earholes with audio joy. Visit our website with links to all the other amazing shows at www.thepfpn.com. Thanks for listening.
So now that we've heard from our podcast network, it's time for some questions. And if Wes has never listened to the show, he doesn't know the questions because I don't share them. I did ask the same questions of our last guest, so if any of our future guests listen, they'll know the questions, unless I change them up. And they are all pretty much pop culture based.
Okay.
The first one, movies and TV. Is there a movie or TV show, classic or recent, that has deeply influenced your creative style or the way you tell stories through your art?
There isn't anything specific that comes to mind. I mean, several different things come to mind, but nothing, specific. Always been a big fan of Cameron Crowe. There's been some magical moments over the years through cinema. My first experience watching Star Wars, the original, when it came out in 1977, I was the perfect age for it. One of the parents in our neighborhood took a carload of us kids to the show at a drive-in movie theater. And so we saw Star Wars in a very clear night sky with a lot of stars. And then so the stars on the screen mixed with the stars of the sky, I was like, this is the coolest thing ever. It would have been cool in a movie theater too, but that was just something that comes to mind as being a real cool moment. As far as movies, it didn't affect how I make movies now, but I don't know. I guess if I watch something and I'm just thoroughly impressed with the editing or certain shots. One of the films I made, I actually had screenshots of some editing that some Academy Award-winning editors put together. And so when we had two people talking together, I would look at that, not to steal their style, but to learn from it. If they're going to win an Oscar for the editing of this film, that sounds like a great film to learn how to be a better editor and better cinematographer by capturing the shots and so forth.
Which Cameron Crowe movie do you like the most, or is your favorite?
Oh, well, because I was in high school when it came out, probably Fast Times at Ridgemont High, although I guess that doesn't really count as he didn't direct that one. His writing was part of it. The Vanilla Sky was pretty wild when that came out. Yeah, I pretty much like everything he's done, I think. Just about, yeah.
Now, being big horror fans like we talked about, do you have a favorite scary movie? Do you have a favorite?
Oh, well, I'll tell you what I think the scariest movie I've ever watched is. That's because, again, I was just a young kid. I mean, it traumatized me for years, but it was the original Don't Be Afraid of the Dark. I mean, they had the remake with, I always forget her name. Yeah, but the original was so frightening because it actually included little people in it as actors, these little demon.
Katie Holmes.
Katie Holmes, yeah. She was in the remake. In the remake, they actually used CGI little creatures. But in the original, they were little people who would try to drag you down to the basement. So it was basically Oompa Loompas trying to drag you down to the basement, but dressed up in a different type of wardrobe and costume. It was just the most terrifying thing I've ever experienced in my life. And then later in high school, it would have been Nightmare on Elm Street, because that was,
You got to see that in theaters in 84?
Yes.
We're trying to get your age here too, but
I was still in high school in the 80s, yeah. So,
Yeah, everybody wonders why Wonka's chocolate's so sweet. Now we know why. So we'll go with music next. Is there a band, album, or song, of course, classic or recent, that has deeply influenced your creative style or the way you tell stories through your art?
Oh, I'm going to go with an older band. I'm going to go with Blue Oyster Cult for the reasons of their rock style. They have blues. Sometimes they lean more into the metal. Ultimately, it's because a lot of their lyrics was based on poetry and stories of fantasy. And so a lot of their lyrics lean into the dark side. So yeah, I think that says a lot about my personality. I write in all sorts of genres, but I really do love the macabre and the gothic. The last stage play I wrote and directed was Gothic romance about the underworld. I've always had a fascination with anti-heroes and Dracula. A few years ago, I took a dream vacation to England and visited the grave sites of a lot of famous writers, even put a flower on Agatha Christie's grave, visited Mary Shelley's grave. I mean, not at nighttime. I didn't go like a spooky, it was during the day, but I'll just go with that answer.
Yeah, when you were talking about the gentleman earlier that was in the radio in outro, and you said you wanted him to do something devious, and I was thinking maybe an old Western or an old black and white film noir where he's the bad guy, and
Yeah.
his voice and his look just, to me, fits so well in that time
Right.
period.
He just the most gentle human being in real life, but his presence, there's a lot of power there.
Yeah, he's almost like you would see him sitting next to in Casablanca, sitting next to him, drinking a glass of whiskey.
Right. Totally agree.
Then we go with an event. Is there a major cultural moment or event that shifted how you see your role as an artist?
Ooh. I would say years ago, I had an opportunity, again, very early. It might have been in the early 2000s. They don't have it anymore, but there's something called the Screenwriting Expo in Los Angeles. And I pinched my pennies and saved some coins and got out there. So I took a lot of classes from screenwriting gurus. Robert McKee was there. But the main event there was William Goldman and Aaron Sorkin interviewing each other. And so I was the audience, got to watch them do their thing and talk with one another. I would say that was definitely a pivotal moment. Later at the Austin Film Festival, listening to Meg LaFoe and Lorien McKenna, who now have a podcast called The Screenwriting Life, having them talk. And I went to their panel thinking, I've been doing this for quite a while. I doubt if I'm going to learn anything major. Because I always knew that as a writer, we should try to be vulnerable. But just the way they presented vulnerability in writing by something they call, jump into the lava. They told a story about the creation of one of the Pixar films, and they used examples of how the writer was able to dig deeper. Basically, it's just asking the question, why? Why did you write the story? And then you give an answer, and then asking why again, almost like an interrogation, interrogating yourself. So every time you ask why, you got to peel back another layer of skin. I think that really was pivotal in how I approach my art as well.
Yeah, I feel like we see that a lot in films. We watch a lot of films, a lot of short films. I catch myself saying, why is that there? And you talked about editing earlier. I feel like that's one of the hardest things for people that make films is to edit themselves. That's hard for us to edit the podcast. Like sometimes I'm like,
right. There are plenty of times when I'll watch a film, even by some of my best friends, that I would be able to shave 30 minutes off of that feature, or maybe 45 if it's really long, but it's more challenging for them. And the same goes for me. There are people who probably watch something I do thinking I could shave off 5 or 10 minutes of that, where I might be a little bit more precious to it. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. Well, some of the biggest filmmakers that we see, like the one that always comes to mind when we talk about that is Rob Zombie, who has trouble editing himself when he gets the chance. And one that Brian and I have talked about a little is the new film Iron Lung, where the YouTuber Mark
Yeah.
Pillar or something like that. It's an over 2 hour long movie about a guy in a tube, and we're just like, you could have took a half an hour out of that, man.
I did see that title, Iron Lung, recently. I wondered what that was all about. Okay. Yeah, I'm a fan of Rob Zombie films. I'm a fan of the first 2 acts of Rob Zombie films. The last act always trips me up a little bit, but because I thought The House of 1,000 Corpses was really fantastic. Yeah. But at the end, when it became more fantasy than reality, no, I'm not really scared anymore.
That's why The Devil's Rejects is my favorite, because until they make a third one, it lives in reality.
Right. Totally agree.
Next one's about books. What book do you think every creative person should read, and how has literature influenced your perspective as an artist?
Oh, goodness gracious. I was not expecting that.
You were talking about interrogation, and here we are.
No, I shouldn't have. Yeah. I knew I was getting myself into trouble.
I mean, you could tell us about your favorite book. You can tell us about a book that you read at a pivotal point in your life that kind of changed how things were perceived.
I grew up reading Agatha Christie books. My dad had a wall-to-wall library of books. I mean, from ceiling to side. I mean, it was a huge, but the strangest thing is not once did I ever see my father read any of the books. He liked to collect them, but I never saw him sitting down enjoying one. And so it was kind of a free library for me to check out different things. So I think that's where that started. But then it became just a class assignment in high school to go to the local library and pick out a few books to write a report on. And I knew that Agatha Christie was a murder mystery writer and thought that would be really exciting, I think. And so I picked out 2 books. The first one I didn't like at all, but the second one was Murder on the Orient Express. And I just got hooked after that. Back then, too, I was also a fan, I still am, of the Green Bay Packers. And they were so bad then that I usually only watched one half of a game. And at halftime, I would go upstairs. The rest of my family would keep watching the game, and I would just go read because if they're going to get beat anyway, they're playing the Bears. But Walter Payton's going to run all over. So I'm just going to go read. I would say, yeah, it's not a specific life-changing particular book, but just, I guess, a series of romanticizing something as devious as murder.
Is there a writer that you find does books well that would be somebody that I want to write screenplays? This is someone I should read.
Oh, I mean screenwriting books or screenwriting?
Yeah, or just an author that you're like, God, this would translate so well onto the screen, but their stuff doesn't find it there. I always think of Stephen King. I always think his stuff just doesn't seem to me, his horror stuff especially, doesn't translate to the screen. Everything of his I love is Stand By Me, Shawshank, all the stuff that's not really horror, even though it is. Those have so many elements of fear and being scared. So I just don't know if there's an author you're like, God, this person should be, his books or her books should be made into movies.
I would love to see more Ray Bradbury stories turned into celluloid, filmed. And I think maybe even especially nowadays because he wrote so much about machines taking over. And so I wish somebody would explore more Ray Bradbury material.
Turn it into like an AI taking over kind of thing.
And then having judged a lot of the screenplay competitions too, that is something I'm seeing a lot more of, where a third or so of the scripts to read have some sort of AI connection now. And so I think for the writers, the challenge right now is to make those AI scripts as original as possible, because right now the majority of them are the AI starts off good and then turns bad. And so it's really, we kind of lost the reveal along the way because we're expecting it. I guess the more AI scripts that come out, I hope writers will try to be as original as possible. I loved Ex Machina, and now this is going to be interesting.
And we've already had Terminator where AI started out bad and now it's good.
Right. Right.
So my last question, is there a famous person or someone in your personal life who has had a major influence on you as an artist? And what lessons did you learn from them? And how do they still shape the way you create today?
Oh, wow. There have been so many peers over the years. And I'm a person who's not so stubborn. I can learn from someone much younger than me too, who's doing something bold in their art. There are several people. One of them was one of the originating members of the Iowa Scriptwriters Alliance, William Coleman. He was a professor at Drake. He was both a playwright and a screenwriter. He passed away a handful of years ago, and the theater at Drake is now named after him. He was definitely a great role model when I was more active with the Iowa Scriptwriters Alliance. Now, the ISA doesn't exist anymore either, but yeah, he's definitely on that list. I'm still inspired by peers. For the last 2 decades, we've been writing scripts and creating things along with Lowain White. Gosh, there's going to be 20, 30 people I'm not going to mention. Shirley Long with the Iowa Motion Picture Association I went to the Donna Reed Festival in Denison a long time ago and found out there through Shirley. She introduced herself and said there is this group of people who are want to write screenplays, which was a miracle to me because I thought I was the only one in Iowa. Back then, it's not New York or Los Angeles, so I bet I'm the only person who's even thinking about writing a movie script. But little did I know there was a lot of people in Iowa with that same dream.
Yeah, it's just kind of crazy though. I'm sure back in the 80s when people were wanting to make their own films, they always had the connection where, yes, I have to go to New York City or LA to get that made. But now you could be anywhere in the United States or in the world and you could make your own film now.
Yeah, I love that. Georgia's a hot spot and other places are hot spots, but even outside of the hot spots, anything can be done. That's, I think, what made Napoleon Dynamite so fresh is because that's an area, the Northwest that you don't don't see a lot in films. And plus the humor was just what it should have been. But yeah, I mean, that's the beauty of when digital came around. I watched an interview of somebody from Sundance. They were interviewing, I can't recall the director's name now, but she was saying she couldn't get people to look at her writing or want to turn her writing into film. So she just grabbed a camera and did it herself. And that's what inspired me to do it. I was actually at a basketball game watching one of my children play when they were really young. I was sitting next to my father and he said, so do you want to still do this film stuff? Because I was just always talking about it. He goes, I can help you with that. I go, oh, God, thank you. So then it took off after that. He was generous enough to get me started, help me get started.
He sold some of those books, huh?
Yeah. Maybe that's where they went. Yeah, maybe too.
We like to do this at the end of all of the episodes. Do you have any questions for us?
Oh, gosh. Well, I want to know about your favorite horror movies since that you're aficionado. So what's going on?
My top 10's right here next to me.
Oh, let's do it. Yeah.
I could never just keep a top 10 because things just bounce in and out of it. And
I did a podcast episode where they're like, we need your top 10 films at the end. And I was like, oh, man, I have to knock these out. So I have my top 10.
Okay.
I wrote down right here. You don't have a top 10, Rod? You have a top 1?
I have my top 1. It's always going to be Halloween 1978.
No, that's boring.
Because it's boring.
Yes.
Look what spawned from it.
Here, my top 10. You want to start at 10 or 1?
Let's go 10.
Let's do it. 10.
10. Cannibal Holocaust. I don't know if you know that movie.
Nope.
I wouldn't say it's a horrible movie. It's a very hard watch. And it's very controversial.
Some of the best movies are horrible movies. Yeah.
But it's got this soundtrack, and the opening music is like peak elevator. I'm having a tooth pulled at the dentist music. It's the most beautiful music you'll ever hear in your life. You would not think it's from this film about a group of English people being murdered by cannibals. 7 with Brad Pitt and Morgan Freeman.
Yes. To circle back to writers, Andrew, who wrote 7? Andrew.
I can't think of his name as either. Yeah.
Darn it. He was one of my early, screenwriters that I followed and actually read his scripts. I read the script to 7, not just watched the movie.
Andrew Kevin Walker.
Andrew Kevin Walker. Yes. Okay, go on.
Number 8 is just because I love Godzilla and my 7-year-old loves Godzilla, and this is just a film for her son of Godzilla. It's probably one of the worst Godzilla movies, but
yeah,
it's
fun.
It's fun. Number 7 is Behind the Mask: The Rise of Leslie Vernon.
Ooh, I think I might have heard of that.
Yeah, it's a mockumentary almost. Wouldn't you call it a mockumentary or a?
Oh. Yeah, very meta, aware of itself.
Okay.
Number 6 is another awful film, The Greasy Strangler. Just yeah. Number 5 is Friday the 13th, Part 5.
5. Oh yeah, I did watch what you did the other day where you said it was not 6, it was 5.
Most people love 6. It's well acted. Number 4 is The Devil's Rejects. I've always loved The Devil's Rejects way more than House of Thousand Corpses. I did go back and watch House of Thousand Corpses not too long ago, and I was like, okay, this isn't as bad as I thought it was.
It was the realism of it that made it frightening.
Yeah. Number 3 is The Legend of Boggy Creek.
That's one that I sadly haven't watched.
Number 2 is My Bloody Valentine, the original from 1981. It's my favorite slasher film. And number 1 is Return of the Living Dead.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
So
a classic.
You're not thinking of Night of the Living Dead from...
Night of the Living Dead. Return of the Living Dead. Is that at the mall?
No, that's Dawn of the Dead is at the mall.
Okay.
Yeah, Dawn of the Dead's at the mall. But Return of the Living Dead is sort of the comedic take off of Night of the Living Dead by Russo.
Yeah, by John Russo. 1980, was it 84?
85.
85. And I actually watched part 2 first. It was one of those you catch late at night and you're like, God, this is so stupid. It's fun. And then years later, I go back and find the original and I'm like, okay, this is way better because it's the same actors are the 2 main characters with the same names, even though they die at the end of the first one. So let's just bring them back for the second movie.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, now, I guess on the same wavelength of zombie movies, my favorite would have to be Train to Busan. The Fleur Cinema in Des Moines, they had a series where they have local filmmakers present a movie that inspired them somehow. And I chose that one because it was a zombie movie that actually had emotion in it and a story to it. Basically just to show the audience, no matter what the genre or subgenre of a film, it can still also be emotional. And I had friends who had never seen it before who showed up that night to watch it at the Fleur. They said the same thing when they walked out. They said, I had no idea I was going to get teary-eyed at
a zombie movie.
This is crazy. And I said, well, that's why I played it.
I have a story about that. Right around COVID, I used to have a group of friends that would come to my home and we would watch like a theme kind of movie every month. And it was COVID, so none of us got together, but Netflix and some other streaming services where, you could share and then everyone could watch at the same time. And I showed them Train to Busan, and nobody commented while we were watching this. But at the end, one of them goes, "Fuck you, Rod. You made me cry through this damn movie."
I totally believe it at work. Am I going to see you guys in Ottumwa?
I'm going to try to make it on Saturday. But yeah, I definitely would like to go there. I was there last year and I watched all the films, but I judged this year, so I've seen all the films. Yeah, I'd like to make it to that. But yeah, we'll know the results after this comes out. And hopefully, yeah, because I mean, it was well received. Outro was.
Oh, great. Well, I appreciate that. I know Mike is going to be able to make the trip. We're planning on making the trip to the last two, both Ottumwa and Cedar Rapids. And for a while now, it's been mostly just me. Mike made it to the premiere in Dubuque, but hasn't been able to make it to a few of the other ones. And I bet people want to hear from Mike and are probably tired of hearing me talk about Outro by myself, because I'm sure they're going to be more excited to talk to him and learn about his experiences then.
I don't think I'll make Ottumwa, but I will be at Snake Alley if you're going again this year.
I sure hope to. Yeah.
I usually make Friday and Saturday. Sometimes I make Thursday, but not always.
Like family there. I try to make it every year.
Yep.
Now, do you have anything you would like to promote outside of like Outro, Wilt, or anything else? You have a Facebook page, Worthing's World, right?
Worthing's World, right. Well, yeah, I guess if anybody wants to follow along with not only some of the things that projects I'm working on, but a lot of the peers in the state of Iowa. I did send out a question to 4 different peers that I have high regard for, and I'll be posting on Worthing's World their answers to the question, what have you learned about yourself through your art? Some of that is from someone who specializes in horror movies and some that specialize in other different genres. And so, I'm excited to present those answers on Worthing's World. As far as that goes, though, it's mostly writing. I'm writing a short screenplay that I hope to send out to competitions. I don't know if I'll be able to craft it fully in time for SNAF, but if I do, I'll definitely try to submit it there. But otherwise, maybe Austin or Nashville. I have a stage play. It's a full-length play, 8 different vignettes that has to do with twins, because I'm a twin and I'm kind of want to put something out there that would be a fun show. And some of it is, well, I wouldn't say dark, but there's a few tough subjects. There's a lot of humor, but a few tough gut-punching subject matter too, that for the hills and valleys moment of the play. Yeah, so right now it's mostly just behind the scenes, nothing really to present right now. Well, I take that back. I did have a feature film that I do act in that was released last week. It's on Amazon Prime right now and also Fandango at home. It's a rated R rom-com called 5683. So just the 4 digits, 5683. I had the fun privilege of acting in that as a soap opera actor. Soap opera that the main character is obsessed with. But it's a really fun, well put together by the team at Mediaverse. You guys have probably heard about. They're all over our film community pages.
Yeah, I did catch your post on that, and streaming on some of those pay services right now, and hopefully it'll hit on Prime for your subscription or Hulu or something like that.
Anyone out there is listening is in the mood for a fun rated R rom-com. It's really so well put together on a shoestring budget, everything made in Iowa. It's super impressive, and the editing is fantastic, and a lot of great character actors and a lot of fun.
Well, thank you very much, Wes, for coming on. We appreciate it, and we'll get some of your links.
Okay, and I guess on Instagram, it's at Wes Worthing.
Can't wait to see what happens for you in the future. What else you bring out on short film and feature films. Good luck with Outro. Hopefully we get a couple more awards there.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much. I appreciate you guys having me on, and the unexpected questions kind of got me. I'm going to have to look through my book collection and see if there's something that really oh yeah, I remember how that changed my life.
We're hoping to get everybody with those questions.
But thank you so much. It's a lot of fun.
Oh, yeah. We'll see you down the road. Well, yeah, you'll have to come back next episode and see who we have on Red Fog Radio.
Tune in next month as we wander back into the fog in search of new artists on Red Fog Radio.